Commissioner Fielder, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Johnson, can you hear me?
Montana law, you don't need that other stuff anyway. Montana law requires the presiding officer at a rulemaking hearing to read the following notice. Notice of the function of Administrative Rule Review Committee. Administrative Rule Review is a function of interim committees and the Environmental Quality Council, or EQC. These interim committees and the EQC have administrative rule review, program evaluation, and monitoring functions for the following executive branch agencies and the entities attached to agencies for administrative purposes. Economic Affairs Interim Committee, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Labor and Industry, Department of Livestock, Office of the State Auditor and Insurance Commissioner, and Office of Economic Development. Education and Local Government Interim Committee, State Board of Education, Board of Public Education, Board of Regents of Higher Education, and Office of Public Instruction. Children, Families, Health, and Human Services Interim Committee, Department of Public Health and Human Services. Law and Justice Interim Committee, Department of Corrections and Department of Justice. Energy and Telecommunications Interim Committee, Department of Public Service Regulation. Revenue and Transportation Interim Committee, Department of Revenue, Department of Transportation. State Administration and Veterans Affairs Interim Committee, Department of Administration, Department of Military Affairs, and Office of the Secretary of State. Environmental Quality Council, Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. Water Policy Interim Committee, where the primary concern is water quality and quantity of water. Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. These interim committees and the EQC have the authority to make recommendations to an agency regarding the adoption, amendment, or repeal of a rule, or to request the agency prepare a statement of the estimated economic impact of a proposal. They also may poll the members of the legislature to determine if a proposed rule is consistent with the intent of the legislature, or during the legislative session, introduce a bill repealing a rule or directing the agency to adopt or amend a rule, or a joint resolution recommending that an agency adopt, amend, or repeal a rule. The interim committees and the EQC welcome comments and invite members of the public to appear before them and send written statements in order to bring to their attention any difficulties with the existing or proposed rules. The mailing address is Post Office Box 201-706, Helena, Montana 59620-1706. The commission maintains a list of interested persons and the subjects in which each person the list is interested. Within 3 days of the rulemaking notice being published, all interested persons are notified about the rulemaking activity. If anyone here would like to be placed on an interested persons list, please use the meeting sign-in sheet for that purpose at the front of the door to indicate your wish to be included as an interested person. If you are appearing online and wish to be on the interested person list, please state that at the time of your testimony. Requests to join the interested persons list can also be emailed to pschelp@mt.gov. We now will move to the proceedings. The notice of public hearing on the proposed rule change was published August 5th, 2022 in the Montana Administrative Register as MAR Notice 38-5-254. Copy of the notice can be found on the Secretary of State's website at sos.mt.gov/arm/register. Consistent with its obligation under 2-4-314 of the Montana Code annotated, the Commission has reviewed its existing rules implementing PURPA, determined that they are out of date in several ways, and proposes to update them and modernize those rules with the revisions shown above. Further, the Commission has the obligation under PURPA to incorporate rules adopted by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, and several of the Commission's rules do not reflect current FERC rules. Proposed revisions to the Commission's rules range from simple adjustments that remove redundant language to substantive amendments that would change how the Commission calculates avoided costs under PURPA. For a complete description of the proposed changes, please refer to the statements of reasonable necessity included in the notice of public hearing. Paragraph 1 of the notice indicates that the purpose of this hearing is to consider the proposed adoption and amendment of the Commission's PURPA rules. Paragraph 2 of the notice advises the public that the department will make a reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities so that those persons can participate in the rulemaking process. Paragraph 3 sets forth the text of the proposed new rules and justification for adoption. Paragraph 4 sets forth the current text of the rule Commission proposes to amend with additions underlined and deletions interlined. Paragraph 4 includes a statement of reasonable necessity for the proposed amendments. Paragraph 5 indicates the interested persons may present their data, views, or arguments either orally or in writing at this hearing or after this hearing to the Commission. The paragraph also indicates the deadline for comments, which I will discuss later. Paragraph 6 notes that the Montana Consumer Council is available to represent interests of the consuming public. Paragraph 7 notes that the commissioner or duly appointed presiding officer will preside over the hearing. Paragraph 8 describes the process of joining the Commission's interested persons list for administrative rulemaking. Paragraph 9 notes that a copy of the proposal notice is available on the Secretary of State's website. Paragraph 10 concludes that the bill sponsor contact requirements of state law do not apply to this rulemaking. Paragraph 11 states that the department has determined the proposed rule will not significantly and directly impact small business. Purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment regarding the proposed rule changes. In addition to this hearing, written comments regarding the proposed rule changes may be submitted to the Commission. All written comments must be submitted to the Commission no later than 5 p.m. September the 2nd, 2022. And let me repeat that, that all written comments must be submitted to the Commission no later than 5 p.m. on September 2, 2022. Following the close of public comment period, the Commission will summarize and respond to the comments received. The summarized comments and the Commission's response will be published in the Montana Administrative Register as part of the rulemaking process. Now we will begin with our receipt of public comments. Are there proponents to the proposed rulemaking? Proponents. Mr. Stamanson, come forward. You know the drill. Turn on the blue light, identify yourself, and have at it.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to give comment on the proposed rules. It'll be very brief. My name is Jamie Stamitson. I'm with the Office of the Montana Consumer Counsel. And my office, we believe these proposed amendments would improve the process by which avoided cost is calculated, and that calculating the avoided cost of energy at time of delivery will better ensure ratepayer indifference between QF and non-QF sources of energy. And this Friday, we will be filing written comments that expand on these points. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stamitson. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Shannon Heim. I'm the Director of Regulatory Corporate Counsel at Northwestern Energy. With me in the room today is Steve Schmidt, who is the Manager of Energy Supply Planning at Northwestern. We are pleased to participate in this hearing today and particularly appreciate all the effort that has gone into the development of these rules from staff and other stakeholders. The Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act, affectionately known as PURPA, requires Northwestern to purchase energy from qualifying facilities at our avoided cost of energy and capacity. I'd like to start my comments with a quote from a white paper drafted by Dr. David Dismukes. Quote, PURPA reform is not one that seeks to benefit regulated utilities as much as it is a public policy initiative that should eliminate a set of regressive and excessive subsidies that benefit large renewable generation developers and their investors and burden retail ratepayers. Continuing to allow these renewable developers to abuse these PURPA provisions is 1, inconsistent with its original legislative goals, 2, will create long-term ratepayer cost recovery burdens, 3, will continue to incent excessive uneconomic renewable energy capacity development, and 4, will increase ratepayer costs, end quote. I don't always agree with Dr. Dismukes, but Northwestern has never disputed his expertise. And I do believe that he offers a valuable independent perspective on PURPA reform. We'll cite to his white paper in our written comments this week. Northwestern appreciates the Commission's willingness to find solutions to the challenges proposed by PURPA, now more than 40 years old. Over the years, Northwestern has routinely appeared before the Commission in dockets involving PURPA and has dealt with the rules under discussion today repeatedly. Overall, the Commission's latest rulemaking related to PURPA is a good step in the right direction, especially the amendments to the rules regarding variable avoided energy costs and the establishment of a legally enforceable obligation. Northwestern supports the 2 new rules as well as the proposed amendments to the existing rules. We will provide, as I indicated, written comments later this week, but I'd like to highlight some of our advocacy for the record today. First, related to the new rules, we support new rule number 1. I would note, though, that the reference to the effective date for 18 CFR Part 292 of August 5th, 2022 could be misleading or confusing to readers in the future. Northwestern suggests that if the Commission believes a date must be included in the rule, that the date should be December 31st, 2020, as this was the date in the most recent federal regulations became effective. Although we do note that the Commission's current administrative rule incorporating the federal PURPA regulation does not include an effective date reference at all. And so it maybe is just more easily deleted. Regarding new Rule 2 on voluntary mediation, we overall support the adoption of new Rule 2 and the introduction of a mediation process. In our experience, QFs often rush to the Commission without adequately attempting to negotiate a power purchase agreement. So the effectiveness of the program will largely lie with the QF's willingness to utilize it. I would like to respectfully suggest that the Commission consider clarifying the rule to alleviate any potential due process concerns. Due process guidance would suggest that a mediator should be a person not currently employed by the Commission. An unintended consequence for the agency could be that if the Commission appoints a Commission staff member, that staff member would then have to be walled off from any future QF docket. This could prove a challenge for the agency, and we suggest that this could provide an opportunity for the Commission to use the funding designated for use at the Agency Legal Services Bureau. Again, we think this is more of an implementation concern, not a drafting issue. I'd like to turn to the two substantive issues addressed by the Commission's rule amendments. First, Northwestern wholeheartedly supports the calculation of the avoided cost of energy at the time of delivery. To be clear, this means the QF receives a fair price for energy as determined by the market. Customers pay for what they receive. FERC has exhaustively investigated the concept of variable avoided energy rates and concluded that they are appropriate and legally supported. FERC gave states the flexibility to adopt rules for avoided energy rates that vary and are not fixed for the term of an agreement in Order Number 872. FERC determined that based on the evidentiary record before it in the original, FERC determined based on the evidentiary record before it that the original balancing theory that justified fixed rates over the term of a contract has resulted in payments above avoided costs and caused utility customers to subsidize QFs in contravention of in contravention of PURPA's requirement of just and reasonable rates for customers. In FERC's docket investigating this issue, QFs complained that this flexibility would prevent QFs from obtaining financing and have a devastating effect on future QF development. Northwestern acknowledges that the Commission is likely to hear similar arguments today. FERC, however, first concluded that PURPA does not guarantee a rate that allows QFs to be financed. Notwithstanding that position, FERC did analyze the claims made by the QFs and soundly rejected them. In support of the concept that fixed energy rates are not necessary to encourage QF financing, Northwestern has obtained a letter from Ryan Piernot with KeyBank. He serves as the Managing Director of Utilities, Power, and Renewable Energy. In Mr. Piernot's letter, he explains that debt financing would still be available with variable cash flows. He notes that the impact from variable pricing could impact the developer's return, thus the QF developer's profit margins, but not necessarily whether the financing occurs in the first instance. Northwestern will attach that letter to its comments later this week. QFs in Montana are embracing pricing set at the time of delivery. For example, in docket number 2022.07.073, Colstrip Energy Limited Partnership, KELP, submitted a proposed PPA with variable energy rates to the Commission. Northwestern notes that additional QFs in the negotiation stage have also expressed interest in variable rates. The last item I'd like to address are the revised LEO rules, the legally enforceable obligation. Northwestern fully supports the proposed changes to the Commission's LEO rule. While many of the requirements for establishment of a LEO are set forth in the amended rules currently exist in the version of ARM 38.5.1909, Northwestern believes that the Commission's revisions to the rule are appropriate and align with FERC's recent proclamations about the establishment of LEOs. I'd like to close by thanking the Commission and its staff and reiterating that reform efforts undertaken by the Commission will add the valuable tools to its toolbox that FERC intended you to have. We think that this is a great step and we appreciate the efforts, and we strongly urge the Commission to adopt the proposed rules.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Heim. Before I go any further, I want to just for the record acknowledge the fact that Commissioner Fielder and President Brown are in fact participating remotely in the hearing process. So just so that folks are aware of that. Are there any other proponents in the room? Any other proponents in the room? Do we have any proponents online? Are there opponents? Mr. Uda.
Thank you. I guess you're Chairman Johnson today? Okay. All right. And members of the Commission who may be listening. I think the problem here is that you have, with these rules, a very clear choice to make. You're either pro-ratepayer or you're pro-utility. In the absence of competitive pressure from qualifying facilities, there will be no competition in Northwestern. They can wave around position papers and everything else, but I will ask you this. How honest do you think developers are with Northwestern when they're trying to get financing for their project? They have to talk to me. I talk to them all the time. And what they've told me is that this rule will kill QF development in Montana. This is undoubtedly what Northwestern wants. But I would ask you, what do you think you're doing as opposed to what are you doing? If you think what you're doing is creating a better situation for ratepayers, that's just not right. Okay, there have been abuses of the PURPA system over time. I can't think of any in Montana. When they come back to us and they say, okay, well, your avoided cost for a 20-year contract is $20 a megawatt hour. We disagree with that. But sometimes it's just driven by the market, right? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's driven by other factors. But the fact is, it's hard for Northwestern to come in and tell you as an effective basis in a project that's going to cost ratepayers hundreds of millions of dollars, which figures out to something far higher than what they're paying us if you don't have that benchmark to start with. PURPA disciplines and regulates the market in a very clear way. And without that pressure, Northwestern can charge whatever it likes. If you think our rates are too high, well, you have any number of mechanisms at your disposal, and you've used them to keep rates down. From 2016 through the present day, all QF rates have been in a very narrow band between like $17 a megawatt hour and like $24 a megawatt hour, never above that. Ask yourself this question when you look at Northwestern's proposals for its own projects. Do these costs align with what developers are and have been willing to do? That's the issue. So you're either pro-competition, in other words, having competitors to the monopsony purchaser that serves the majority of Montanans, or do you want actual competition? Do you want the utility to own all the generation in our state? I don't. And that's why I believe PURPA is extremely important. And I would note that Chairman Glick was not the chairman when these rules came out. He is now the chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. He wrote the dissent, and he specifically said that this approach will kill QF development. Now, again, they can produce all the white papers they want saying it's not true, but look around the country at places that have eliminated this. Unless they are in an RTO where a competitive market has been created by a different mechanism, there are no QFs. Either through controlling the length of the contract or by not having fixed long-term rates, you end up having no QFs. If you have no QFs, you have no competition. If you have no competition, you're at the mercy of Northwestern, and that's exactly where they want you to be, which is why, for example, they have been essentially pushing for a certain interpretation of Senator Zolnikov's bill, House Bill 597. Basically, they've changed that law from being a level playing field, which former Commissioner Kavula, as Chairman Johnson knows full well, was very interested in the idea of parity between QFs and utilities. That bill was designed to create that. It would have created a competitive solicitation opportunity for any generator in the state to come in and make a bid without Northwestern selecting the winners and without Northwestern deciding who owned the project. The current rules that you have for House Bill 597 will destroy any semblance of a competitive market, and this rulemaking will be the death knell of any competition. Is that what you want? I mean, I hear all the time, not you specifically, Mr. Chairman, but other people running for office talking about how pro-ratepayer they are. How pro-ratepayer can you be if you're eliminating all competition to the incumbent utility who's a monopsony purchaser of electricity? Ask yourself this question: have they done a great job with the monopoly power they have? How many megawatts short of capacity are there? How hard do they fight to keep renewable energy projects with battery storage off their system? These are not accidents. This is the way you would expect in a non-competitive market a monopoly or monopsony to behave. And that is exactly what they're doing. So again, what do you think you're doing as opposed to what are you actually doing? What you're actually going to be doing, should you adopt these rules, is eliminating any competition and along in conjunction with House Bill 597 rules, eliminating any opportunity for anybody but Northwestern to build a project in this state. The PURPA rules have been around a long time. In 2008, when Northwestern acquired Colstrip 4, they didn't go through a competitive solicitation. In 2014, when they acquired the hydroelectric facilities, they didn't go through a competitive solicitation. The purpose of these rules was to provide competition to Northwestern. The commission has allowed them not to do it in a competitive way. They've allowed them to control the competitive solicitations they do run and to weight them the way Northwestern wants to, and then pick the winning bidder. And surprise, surprise, is almost always Northwestern. So if you're actually pro-consumer and you were designing a system to create competition, how would you do it? Well, the first thing you would have to do is you would have to reduce the monopoly power of the local utility, not increase it, which is what you'd be doing here. I mean, I don't know exactly what parade of horribles you think the current PURPA implementation has had in Montana, but it hasn't caused any significant problems. Okay. Is it the case that sometimes QF contracts end up being above market? Yeah, that's true. Right now, would some of those contracts look pretty darn good when you have the utility coming in for a very, very, very significant rate increase? Would it be nice to have that leverage against upticks in prices in the WECC? It sure would, but we aren't going to have any of those because with these rules, you're making sure that never happens. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I remember when this whole idea of implementing the entire Western grid as a unit was first proposed, and the comments on it were, well, if you do that, you're going to basically make sure that Montana prices are basically the same thing as California prices. California prices are much more significant. They're higher. They are for a variety of reasons. Some of them are public policy perspectives. But some of it is just when you link markets, that's what happens. Right now, Northwestern has an enormous open position, and they're buying and selling power all the time. Okay, so the question is it better off to have Northwestern have contracts, PPAs with people who are in Montana, providing jobs for Montana, or is it better for them to be importing it from out of state? Now, they want to build their own resources, and they'll tell you the solution to that problem is just let us build gas plants. Okay. The problem with that is without PURPA, how are you going to be able to tell whether or not that's a truly competitive offer they're coming up with? You aren't going to be able to, because if nobody is coming in to set QF rates, you're not going to have any sense of what the market actually is. Now, do I believe it's possible that some QF developer somewhere could take the risk of having a variable rate as long as the capacity payment was high enough? That could happen. I haven't seen it happen, but it could. But I'm telling you from the perspective of my clients, the ones I represent here today who are developers, they don't think that they're going to be able to go forward. Now, maybe that's the intent, but then you're just left with Northwestern. And whether you're a good regulator or a bad regulator is going to depend entirely on how closely you look at their costs. Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to staff up and do that? I mean, that's really the question, because you're going to have to analyze things you haven't analyzed in the past because they had a pressure on them to make sure that their rates were completely out of whack with market. I would comment that Ms. Himes' statement about people be able to get debt service. I mean, you can get debt service. The real trick is, can you get capital interest in your projects? Those are the people that you have to line up, not the debt people. You can get a bank to loan you money for almost anything, depending on the terms. But can you get people, because the capital gets paid off after the debt service? Can you get anybody to invest in your project on a capital basis? They're going to put their cash into this thing. That's what you're trying to attract. With respect to the kelp docket, need I remind anyone that kelp is already built? They don't need a long-term contract to obtain financing. Their project exists. Now, I guess in closing, what I would say to you is, we have specific written comments on these rules, but I'm really urging you to think carefully about what you're doing here, because I don't think it is what you think it is. I think you're making a choice here between ratepayers and Northwestern, between competition and Northwestern. And if you choose one side, you can't choose the other side. That's just as simple as it is. That's all I have. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Uda. Are there other opponents in the room? Any other opponents in the room? Are there any opponents online? Right. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment in an informational nature on the proposed rule? Well, seeing none, I will close this rulemaking hearing. And pursuant to Montana Code Annotated 2-3-103, every commission meeting must include an opportunity for the public to comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda, but within the commission's jurisdiction. Is there any public comment on matters that are not on today's agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the commission? Any public comment online? In the room? Seeing none, I want to thank you all for your participation, and this hearing is adjourned. The time is 1:31 p.m.